Okay, so I'm in the middle of work. I'm being productive. I have art commissions that I'm working on that hopefully will pay my bills, at least pay rent. I am a third of the way there, so I've got multiple commissions I'm working on right now. And I've been productive today. I wasn't at all yesterday. I was productive emotionally. The last couple days have been weirdly emotional and requiring a lot of personal care. And so I've been giving that to myself, because how the fuck am I ever going to take care of anything else if I'm not taken care of, right? I'm a beast, but I'm not a machine. So I can do many things extremely well, but I do require care, and that's okay. That is okay. It's important. If that's the energy that you're feeling right now, like you find yourself getting down at yourself for needing a little extra rest, for feeling extra emotional, for feeling like you just want to cry and hug yourself, do it. Please do it. Please give yourself that time and space. You have absolutely earned it just by existing. Life is incredibly hard. You also don't have to earn those things. If you're tired, you require rest. If you're lonely and feeling sad, you require care. It's not like you have to do things for that. So, giving yourself those things will help you to stay out of the mindset that you need to earn those things as well. And it'll start to create that space where you are just able to give those things to yourself simply because you deserve them, because you exist. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I don't care. I don't care. You deserve love. You deserve care. You deserve to be happy. The majority, it's not even the majority, literally everything that we do that it ends up being toxic and hurtful to others comes from a lack of knowing oneself and caring for oneself. Feeling cared for within oneself, feeling the capacity to do those things. I've met people that swear they were born evil. They were born a baby. Okay, babies are gross, but they're not evil. And it's that mindset comes from having been hurt by somebody who learned how to be evil themselves and used it against them. And it's just a cycle that continues to repeat itself that isn't doing us any good. It does not do us any favors. When somebody is genuinely, truly happy, they aren't given to those things. They really aren't. Like, in our nature as a human being, we're not innately evil. Quit buying into these Christian conservative concepts that had to be crusaded throughout the world by killing people in order to get people to buy into them. Just to be clear, it's only been fear that has put those concepts into us. Nobody in their right mind is coming to a point of truth and clarity and peace within themselves and being like, I'm a dirty, rotten sinner. Get the fuck out of here. Patience, grace, forgiveness, justness, they all come from a point of peace and love within oneself, not self-hatred. I don't care what the alternative is trying to say or convince you of. It's wrong. It's wrong, and it's hurtful, and it's being that way on purpose. So, it's important to just let ourselves exist. To just let ourselves exist. It's not, we're not evil. Evil doesn't exist. You only want it to because you've convinced yourself that that's where power lies. It's not true. It's not true. I ain't buying it. I'm not reading these as I set them up. The cards fall out. I take them as they fall. And then as I'm sitting here talking, I'm like keeping my mind distracted so that I can just feel the energy of where they're supposed to go. Part of that is I mean, I'm looking at them, but it's kind of like when I look at the sun. I've made a habit of staring at the sun, staring at the sun since I was a kid. And I remember going to the eye doctor and him being like, "Oh, you have slight retina damage, right? Cornea damage, whatever it is." He was like, you know, from sun exposure, you should probably make a point of wearing. He's like, "Do you wear sunglasses consistently?" And I was like, he's like, "Yeah, that's probably what it's from." And I was like, "So I shouldn't be staring at the sun?" And he was like, "Did you ever, like, were you not a child at one point? Did nobody teach you?" Like, no, you're not supposed to stare at the sun, which is funny because, like, obviously I was told that all the time as a kid, but I continued to do it. I have a song where I say that, where I'm like, don't look directly into the sun because you just might see paradise. Because it's a temptation, but I will say that sun gazing, how I learned how to do it in a way that doesn't create damage, is by using my peripherals. Your peripherals are an incredible superpower. Learn how to use them. Learn how to look at something and see everything else around you. You can still see the thing in front of you because it's being received by your eyes, but like, let your perception intake all of the rest of the things around you, and it'll heighten your senses as well, and you'll find yourself like able to see shit you never were able to see before. It's a good thing. It's also how you keep from like having to look directly at things while still being able to engage, right? Like we said that in a reading talking about how the dude defeated Medusa, Perseus, I think it was, how he defeated Medusa was that he used a mirror. But you could just use your peripherals too if you learn how to use them well enough. You have to be able to not be distracted by the things that you're looking at directly. That becomes difficult because our consciousness and subconsciousness are always working in tow in order to consistently receive our reality. But somebody that has a lazy eye, and when they're learning how to, like if they're getting that process with the glasses in order to straighten their vision out, like they'll realize that like what they've actually been viewing reality through is their peripherals. And I know people with lazy eyes, and I've been curious enough, and you know, in not a rude way, but ask like, so how is it when you see, like, do you see things blurry? Are you seeing things like in double, like when I cross my eyes? And they're like, no, it's just your peripherals take the lead. So like, you don't even necessarily even notice what you're focusing on innately. We're like, on average, we tend to do the opposite. But if somebody has the capacity to be able to only see from their peripherals and have to learn how to see straight on through their actual, like, main vision, then we can do the opposite, right? The mind is an incredible thing. Our bodies are incredible. We're capable of so many different things. So let yourself be. Just let yourself be. Let yourself exist as you are. Explore those things. Find that, like, your body is so incredibly capable. Another thing that I learned is that, like, this is for whoever's feeling like they need to hear this. I don't know, but, you know, like working long hours, for instance, or like if I've never been a parent, but like if you're a parent and you're also working, or you're a parent and you're also trying to go to school, if you have these responsibilities, especially to other people that like you have to prioritize, and so you do, but you do it at your own expense, and so then you find yourself like slowly burning out. How to maintain yourself without burning out over extended periods of time is to make sure that your input and output are balanced. And what that looks like is that, like, when you're giving to someone, that's output. When you're caring for someone, you're prioritizing someone, when you're, you know, making sure that somebody else is okay, feeding them, you know, catering to their emotions, carrying them, helping them get into a vehicle, whatever stuff it is that you're doing, that's output. And every time that you're putting outside of yourself, you're creating a small space within yourself. And if you aren't filling that space with something for yourself, then you begin to start giving out of an empty cup, or you're giving more and more of yourself. You as a cup are a soft, emotional, sentient being. So you can continue to break off pieces of that cup in order to give of yourself. But ultimately, the more that you do that too, the less you're able to be filled with. You have to be able to be built back up in order to be filled again, because you completely deplete yourself, not just of the things that you have to give, but of your actual cup. It's important to give what you have to give, but not to give of yourself. Don't break yourself off for someone else. It's not going to serve you in the end. If you want to decide to give little pieces of that because you've learned how to heal that process, so be it. I've talked about the process of Kinsakuri and how it's an art to be able to have something that's broken and build it back up into something that's art by using gold. If you use something stronger and better to build yourself back up with, then you're a better object. But that takes a lot. It takes a lot to alchemize gold. It takes a lot to be able to have that gold to work with. I can be an entire golden cup at this point, right? Just because I've done that work so much. But like, there's still this constant process that has to be done. And even then, it's ultimately about opening yourself to a space where you can fully always receive what is to be given out of others. Because again, if I'm a golden cup, even if I'm breaking off pieces of that gold in order to give to others, that still has to be replenished. Where if I'm able to learn how to consistently receive, so that there's just like this constant flow of energy and love and care and compassion and stuff through me, I'm not even having to give of myself. I mean, it's literally taking nothing. It's just coming right through me and out into whoever else needs it, right? That's the ideal. That's the ideal. So like, in order to get to that point, you have to be able to balance things and not burn yourself out, not let yourself get burnt out. So like, what I learned for myself at least was that part of filling myself when I've been outputting so much is a balance between receiving and also putting out. Often, okay, so when you're caring for somebody else, that's output. But when somebody comes to you and has an emotional need and you take that onto yourself in order to work it out with them, or, you know, when somebody else is struggling and so you decide to do that work for them, so you take it onto yourself, that's input. You're the only one that can really gauge what is input and output those types of ways. And it's important to, so that you can know what it is then that you're left with needing yourself. If I've been outputting, then what I need is to eat something good, drink something good, get some sleep, listen to some music that makes me feel some type of way, watch some movie, a movie to entertain myself, like spend time, you know, around people as they're communicating and as they're offering me that type of energy. That's so that I can receive out of what I've put out. If what I've been doing is taking stuff on, then it's not like, if you're taking too much on, trying to cope by watching movies or listening to music isn't actually going to help you, because that's also taking just more on. So you'll find that then putting out of yourself creatively, drawing, painting, singing, dancing, going for a walk, taking photos, talking to yourself, like, those are the types of activities that are going to end up helping you maintain a sense of balance. And I've learned to be pretty strict about it, where like, I am well aware of the energy that I'm intaking and outputting at any given time. And I'll straight up tell people like, okay, that's all that I can take in right now. I have to go put out, and then I can go come back to this. Or, okay, that's all that I can give right now. I have to go receive for myself so that I can give more. You know, and being able to balance those things out and caring for yourself enough to be able to create that space for yourself, to demand that space for yourself even. You don't got to be a cunt about it. You can do it in a loving way, and it'll teach others how to do that as well in a loving way. Not just to love you and give you the space and time that you need for those things, but to also, it leads through example, right? So that people can be like, oh, I guess I'm not the bad guy for needing a rest right now when I'm extremely exhausted. You know, because we tend to tell ourselves that we need to overwork in order to be validated. And that's not true. We're already valid just as we are. We exist as valid. Existence itself is valid enough. So, like, we shouldn't feel bad about giving ourselves care. And we tend to. It's important to create spaces where we don't validate that guilt, where we just say, this is okay because this is what I need. I don't really care how anybody else feels about it. And that's also how you find where you need to set boundaries and who you need to set boundaries with. Because there are people that'll be like, I don't care if you're tired, I still want from you. And those aren't safe people. Those aren't good people to keep around in your close energy transference, right? Or in your circle. So you learn. By giving yourself time and space, you also learn who's willing to actually respect your time and space. And then you learn, like, who you should actually keep close to you. Okay. I don't know exactly who that was for, but there you go. Okay. I decided to use the Hermetic deck. Don't know why. Just came out. The way I have the cards set is like this. 4 and 4. And I have my holographic deck set on the side for clarification purposes. So that's what we're working with. Okay. We have, how is this to be read? It's 4 and 4. Up and down, like this is what I received at first, okay? So we have the Ten of Swords in the upright. The Lord of Ruin. And in this card you have the Sun. You also have the Black Hole Sun. But it's in the, man, I wish I knew the titles for these symbols. You might recognize this symbol. It's part of the Black Hole Sun. It's the Black Hole Sun. It has the, like swastika incorporated into it essentially, which is it's kind of like the wheel of chaos, the wheel of karma. It's a karmic wheel is kind of what it is, right? But this one is like, it's almost like it's like exploding, or it's being broken apart. Although we have these shapes that it generally has, it has like almost like these, you know, like how the swastika does. It has like these like curved, or these pointed, it's not straight rays, they're jagged rays. But this one is particularly jagged, right? And it's not symmetrical. And you can't really tell looking here, but there's a circle around it, right? It's coming out from the circle. Oftentimes it's within that, it's not a pentagram, but it's within that circle. This time it's outside of it, and sometimes that's the case as well. But this circle isn't solid like the sun is here. It almost looks, I mean, it's just stippled, really, kind of like the edges here. But what it gave me the feeling of was like the Ouroboros, which is often depicted in these types of symbols. And so it's almost like, so you have the Ouroboros, and it's like chaos has like broken out past it. So it's almost like it's a breaking of the karmic cycle. I always take these things as so positive. I don't know if a regular tarot reader would, especially with a deck like this, because it tends to come across so seemingly dark, but like it's truly not. Nothing is. We have the two swords, and then we have the eight. We have these two main swords, right? Just like this duality. And then we have 8 swords that are crooked, that are crossed, and that are over and under these swords. So the swords are going through this. Now that if you can see, like, this is a helix. This is a double helix, right? That's portrayed here with these crooked crosses. These crosses actually look like they're made out of wood. I wish that this was clear. They look like they're made out of wood. And then you have these steel swords coming through them. The Lord of Ruin, it's giving me this concept of a karmic cycle coming to an end. Pretty abruptly, pretty chaotically seeming. But really what's happening is that the chaos itself is breaking down. And we have the sun at the top because not only is it a positive thing, but it's also coming into like a full culmination of what has been considered to be death being brought to life. But it's being brought through a very direct truths, a sense of chaos, a sense of conflict, it's a breaking of karmic cycles where like there's all of the truth is revealing like all of these different plans that have been crooked and that were being used essentially almost like as wands, like they were being used for wicked purposes, but these swords have this sense of justice with them, where like they're just these two truths, it's conflicting even to itself to some degree, but what it's doing is, because of the conflict between the two truths that are breaking through this, like it's breaking down the chaos, and it's exposing it, and it's bringing everything full circle, just into a sense of enlightenment and truth and balance. And then under that we have the Ten of Wands, which is the Lord of Oppression in this deck. And like the way that when I set these up, like I wasn't reading them. I didn't actually read the cards. I didn't know what they were. I was kind of using my peripherals to look at the images and then feeling out the energies and then kind of putting them with where they felt like they should go. This one is reflective of this same card because you have this lattice type work. And what that is like this very intentional, purposeful, tactful, strategic set up, right? And in this card, it's kind of going deeper into what this setup was. This is like the ultimate, this is what's happening, and this is like the ultimate like destination for this setup. And this is like talking about the setup where you have 8 wands that are on fire. They're on fire at the points that they connect. I think that's the Sagittarius symbol that's also on fire. And they're at the points that they connect, but they're, and the symbol of Saturn. But they're more basic ones that kind of have the way that they're constructed is that they have points and then they have spheres at their bases. And so they have this, they're very direct. There was a specific intent for each one of them. But the intent was to kind of stimulate some sort of karmic cycle, and to encapsulate that karma and to keep it directed in certain directions. in the same way that, like, it'd be like setting up a lie that if the person becomes convinced of it, they'll keep themselves in that lie for as long as they're convinced of it, right? And because they're wands, it's almost like you're convincing someone of these lies by convincing them that that's where their power lies. That it's in this wand. It's not you, it's in this wand, and this wand is actually taking out and then putting back out. It's never fully coming into the individual, and that's the intent behind the negativity of it, or like the persuasion in it, or the manipulation of it, or the ill intent is to keep that person from being able to truly recognize their power because they're convinced that it's in this wand. But the thing about it, and what's being shown and why it's coming to this cultivation, is truly because in order to set these wands in place, in order to set these wands into place, there had to be stronger structures that kind of forced these to not just continue to stay directed in the direction that they were intended, but to move the energy through them so that they're all on fire at these very specific points of connection. And that fire is almost like a distraction in and of itself. It's like an add-on to like make you recognize the power and be fearful of it. So like you don't want to mess with these wands, sort of deal. There's like a fear in it. And it comes from your base core emotions being controlled through your third eye, through your intuition. But then there's blockages between those things. And it opens up to you being very susceptible to your emotions, but not clear in your head, because your consciousness, your intuition, is essentially being used as a weapon, or at least conveyed as such, to the point that like you may use it that way. But these two wands that are on top too, like they're not you. So ultimately, this whole thing is a setup. And it's set up to convince you of your identity. It's very elaborate. But the truth of the matter is that it isn't you. And so that's like the power of it. That's why it's breaking down and the chaos of it is being removed, is because the setup relied on the person being set up being convinced that the power wasn't theirs, right? And that's how the power was constantly being transferred into these posts, and then being received by whoever isn't in the setup, whoever isn't being set up. But the magic of that, just the way that it's the Lord of Oppression. This person that was set up refused to be oppressed. And so what happened is that they started looking for the truth. They started looking for the truth. One of these truths is that the setup exists and that it's not the individual. The other truth is that the setup exists and it's not the individual. So they appear to be the same, but they're actually serving two separate purposes. One is, it's like a double-edged sword. One is to essentially, the same people that were receiving power through this setup end up having their power removed because of the setup, when they're found out, when this truth comes to light, which is like, this is also truth coming to light. It's the lies, and it's coming into the light. But it's also like, because these wands never gave this person their power, the illusion was that their power was being taken. And it was, essentially, because they were putting their power into the wand, but it was never coming back to them, right? But once they realized that they were the ones putting their power into the wand, and that it was never coming back to them, and once they realized that the power was never within them to begin with, they were able to just release it. They literally slipped out through all of this unscathed. Maybe not unscathed. There's a lot of fire here. But they still escaped from this trap. They weren't entrapped in this. In fact, the two that started this, the two that set this entire thing up, are bound to it. They're not entrapped by it. It becomes its own kind of trap to a degree, but they are bound to it. And it's almost like this is like also like their exposure. They actually become the truths that are being looked at. No longer are the lies what you're noticing. What you're noticing is them being exposed, and all of the lies lie behind them. All of this work that they did lies behind them. Yeah, because it's 2 10s too, so it really does translate directly into each other. I just realized that. Okay, very cool. I have to pee. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay. So next we have the Three of Wands, the Lord of Established Strength in the reverse, and Fortitude, Daughter of the Flaming Sword, also in reverse. Okay. Let's see here. The Three of Wands in the reverse. So I think this is getting into kind of explaining deeper what the setup actually was. And what I'm seeing is divine passion and would be the right word, like direction, but it's like when you choose your own direction, when you're like stubbornly like, this is the way I'm gonna go. The confidence, divine passion and confidence, being taken, being robbed of those things, or being restricted from those things, or feeling burnt even by those things. And so being weary of them. And what that ends up doing is creating a confusion revolving around someone's love life and someone's personal self-esteem. And then that's, okay, so that's like in the grander perspective. As we break it down deeper, oh, this is like the strength card, fortitude, duh. Wild. Daughter of the Flaming Sword. So as we break it down further, I do think the Daughter of the Flaming Sword is interesting given what's already out here. The fact that it's referred to as daughter and that we've already discussed that there were two people that created this setup. And the setup was to create these flames that are supposed to deter a person, supposed to break a person down. But it's also, I mean, that it's the sword, the flaming swords, right, which we have there. But that's the crazy thing about it, too, because like I said, like, the reason that this setup didn't work is because this woman of fortitude, this woman of strength, is not the daughter of these flaming wands. It was a misconception. It was an illusion. It was a lie. These are all lies. She's the daughter of the flaming sword, which is the Ace of Swords, like the truth. She's the daughter of the truth. So, like, ultimately, being the daughter of the flaming sword, she's not given to this same concept. She doesn't have a flaming sword. She has a flaming cup, which I find so fascinating. She has no flaming sword. She has this cup, and it's filled with fire. And what's interesting about the way that this card is set up, too, is that in this, she's holding this lion, and she is, like, defeating it with this cup of flames, with this passion and love, and she's destroying this lion, okay? That's the point. But she's doing it with her own inner strength. Her shield also has a lion on it. It's not this lion. This is actually where her strength and protection is coming from her cup of flames, from herself, and from this shield of strength that she has. Which actually, it's cute because it actually looks like the my surname crest has two lions, and it's that Celtic lion image. So the attempt was to, that's also interesting, because, like, I used to always have this affinity for Aries, and, like, there was a dude who I dated, a Satanist, who I dated online, who, I swore, now my ex-husband was an Aries, and this was just after we separated. I started dating this dude online, and I swore he was an Aries too. I swore that he was, but he's also a liar. And I, 8 years later, was seeing him in person, and I'd brought up him being an Aries, and he was like, "No, I'm a Capricorn." And I was like, and he's like, "Yeah, that's," because he has a tattoo of a ram on his chest. And he was like, "Yeah, that's why I have the ram's head, because of Capricorn." And I was like, listen, if that were true, I'm pretty sure he was just lying. I think he is an Aries, because I remembered his birthday being April 19th. I don't know where that would have come from if that wasn't the case, but he swears that isn't true. And then he's a Capricorn, which is interesting too, because my ex was a Capricorn. My most recent ex. I can't say most recent. When I refer to my ex, I'm generally referring to this person that I was with for almost 6 years. So I just thought that was interesting too, because I was still living with that guy when I had gone to see this other guy for the first time, or I had, like, just moved away from my ex that was a Capricorn, and he was like, "No, I'm a Capricorn." And I was like, "Are you?" I don't believe it. I also believe that if you were a Capricorn, you would have put, like, tentacles on your ram or something like that, like. So it's an interesting concept because I used to have this weird affinity for Aries. And it was just like it came naturally to me. I never learned much about astrology to begin with, or like the signs or horoscopes and stuff. We weren't involved in those things when I was growing up. But something about it just always resonated with me. But my oldest brother is an Aries, and we got along for a period of time. When he wants to be nice to me and actually get along with me, we get along great. I don't have a problem with him. But like, he's an asshole, and we generally don't have a connection whatsoever, and never really have. We did in different ways, but like, he also always kind of kept me at arm's length. And so it was weird that like I just had this general affinity, but then like over time it started changing, where I suddenly realized that it like wasn't necessarily just Aries. It was that like I have an attraction to fire signs. I just do. I don't even do it on purpose. Every time that I find out what a person's sign is, or like, I'm like, why is it that I keep doing this to myself? But particularly Leos. I have been attracted to multiple Leos, and I like fell head over fucking heels for them. Almost instantly, if not instantly. And I mean, one of the best relationships I've had was with a Leo, but like it still was pretty toxic, and that was in part because there was healing on either sides that wasn't being done by either of us, or that was being avoided by both of us, and then we ended up being conflicting that way. A healed Leo and a healed Scorpio can have an incredibly intense, powerful connection. And if you do have two healed that are those signs that end up together romantically, they tend to become some sort of power couple. But if they aren't, they annoy the shit out of each other, and they get right under each other's skin, and both of them will become weirdly obsessive, and it can be a bad relationship very easily. The same thing, like I have a lot of Capricorn in my charts, and I'm mostly Scorpio through and through. Like, I'm very much a Scorpio. But my other, like, power sign is a Capricorn. So being with a Capricorn, like I was with a Capricorn longest, and like there was a balance there because they're an earth sign, and they tend to be a little materialistic. That's the thing that we don't really agree on. But at the same time, it creates a balance for me because I'm such a highly emotional being, and they're so grounded that where I tend to be kind of stoic about my materialism, where I'm like, I don't even need this. I got myself. I got my little shell that I'm in. I got my poison. I'm good. Like, that's all that I need. They tend to be more flowing and more willing to like they're consistent. They have a concept of like, this is what I'm going to work for, and then they'll work towards it. They'll go with that flow. They're willing to like make adjustments and stuff like that as they need to. And so there actually is a strong balance with that. And I've always appreciated that about Capricorns. Those are the signs that I tend to be drawn to, and that I have been drawn to, and that I've had in relationships. And yeah, my first boyfriend was an Aries as well. I also dated another Aries. I've dated 2 Capricorns and 3 Leos. Now, I've only had 4 real, genuine, like, committed relationships to any degree. But I've dated a lot, and, you know, aside from the casual dating, those were the relationships that I've had that have been more significant. I also won with another Scorpio, and that man was insane. Love you, dude, but you need to go to therapy. Because an unhealed Scorpio is the fucking worst. They're not. An unhealed Cancer is the worst, in my opinion. Fucking can't stand them. And even a healed Pisces is kind of terrible. They can be real sweet. They can be real fun. They can be real, but they tend to not be terribly self-aware, in my experience. And when they are self-aware, they're manipulative as fuck. My brother was my best friend growing up, and we always got along great, and he's a Gemini. And the Geminis I've met are also fucking insane. Just crazy. A healed Gemini is, a healed person is a decent person, but it is so interesting to me how these things tend to affect our and influence our, dynamics of individual personality. And I think it's in part just because of the way that things are set up in our culture, where like, if you're born at a certain time of year, you're experiencing things at certain periods of time and certain ages and developmental periods and all these different types of things, and that really does influence our personalities. I don't think that it's some magical thing. I'm an incredibly spiritual person, but like, I believe all of these things are actually quite sensible and understandable in different realms. It's just a matter of like being willing to not, always have to only trust what you can see. In fact, you often can't trust your own eyes. You have to trust your experience, and it's a balance of all of those things, right? Anyways, this is interesting to me for the fact that the misleading card is the Aries, and it moves into the Leo. But the Leo in of itself is being defeated. It's being defeated by the Leo that's being embraced. And that's like the love and passion. So there's like this healed Leo, right? The shield. And then the shield is the healed Leo. And then she's actually defeating the lion. The lion, the one that's lying. But also this Aries is also this concept of defeating that illusion of the Aries moving into the Leo. Also, what I'm receiving from this card is like goats on a mountain. I like made some comment one time about how lovely on the mountains are the cloven hooves of those who receive the good news. Something like that. I pretty much took a Bible verse and then turned it around. I grew up with goats being considered demonic almost innately. In the school I grew up in, they were considered demonic innately, as well as cats were, owls, bats, those types of creatures. Anything that has horns, essentially, is all considered somewhat demonic, at least somewhat demonic, but especially those with cloven hooves, which is weird because we still ate pork, but different stuff like that. There's just like these weird discrepancies of certain animals, and like goats are often affiliated with the Baphomet. So then there was this concept of like, it's the sheep are on God's right hand and they're the ones that get received into the fold, and then the goats are on the left hand and they're the ones that get thrown into the void. And so there's this concept of goats being the unchosen of God, or the unreceiving of God, or those that were in rebellion. And that carries into different forms of, Satanism, essentially. It isn't always traditional Satanism, and there's so many different aspects of Satanism where you can't, it's like a blanket umbrella term. But it goes into that too. And generally it's because of the affiliation with Baphomet or Pan, who is also a goat guy. What is he called? A satyr? I'm seeing it in my head and trying to figure out how to pronounce it. A satyr, which is like a half goat, a half person. And I actually quite like Pan as a deity, or like as a demigod, as a deity. But there's also for the hedonistic aspects, he resembles an inner child to me, and the inner beast, but I don't take anything definitively as evil. If you were to, then you can also see Pan as being like the music that leads the children away from their parents and out of the town and into their own destruction. 'Cause that's also a story there. So, there's a lot of different aspects to all these things. Anyways, what I'm seeing with the ram here, what I'm seeing with the goat here is the concept of being the one capable of climbing these precipices that no one else can. You'll see a goat on this mountain that, like, you know, that has ledges like this wide, and it goes all the way up, and like nothing else can survive up there, and these goats are just chilling, and they're climbing, and they're putting themselves into those positions, and they're able to, and they do it for their own protection, and they do it to be able to access nutrients that they can't otherwise, and it's a survival tactic for them. But it's an incredible thing to see, and that's what I'm getting out of this too, is like this, you know, the setup was to convince the individual that their power was something it wasn't, or was in something that it wasn't, and to be fearful of embracing their power, to be fearful of all of these different aspects of these things, and to convince them of some evil, where really, like, even this card in of itself, like, it's showing to embrace that power in order to defeat it, right? To embrace these things and to use the ram in order to do this. It was used against the person set up, but in the same form of alchemy that this card is representing, it's also used to empower the person. You're taking the exact concept that was used to set you up and you're using it for your own power. The very same lie that was told to you in order to convince you that you weren't capable is the truth being eluded in order to, well, the truth is being eluded in order to keep you from your power. But if you can see through that and use your actual third eye, and use the light, and use the power of positivity and the power of the truth, and if you can break through all of that chaos and karmic cycles, that same exact lie is what actually becomes the truth that sets you free. If that makes sense. So we're getting into it more. Now that is its own, these cards, the way that they came out and the way I set them up for whatever reason is that I have 4 on this side and I have 4 on this side. So maybe let's see what the transition is and why we're going to use these cards. The holographic deck. Why the separation between these two? Let's see. Cutting down trees or something out there. One more card, maybe. I can decide if I should take that one or not, but it feels alright. Oh, geez. Okay. I said it feels alright, and then other cards came out. So actually, the Hangman came out in the upright. I'm going to just put it over here in case, but because other cards came out, it's making me feel like I need to take a different card. Hold on. So we have the Knight of Pentacles in the reverse and the Five of Pentacles in the upright. Okay, so what this is revolving around, this was the tactic used in order to set this person up. And then it, you know, kind of is explaining why the setup wasn't working, or why it ultimately didn't work. But the setup itself, this is just the tactics used, the setup itself is here. And so we'll get into what the rest of these cards are. But the setup itself is to take away a person's opportunity for wealth and success. in like a direction of abundance, to take away their sense of the Five of Pentacles in the upright, to take away their sense of comfort or abundance. It's to leave them impoverished, to leave them weak, to leave them broken, and to leave them out in the cold. To rob them of their opportunities, the Knight of Pentacles, to rob them of their opportunities for wealth and success, to keep them out in the cold. Okay. So we go into the Princess of Swords in the upright, the Princess of Rushing Winds. And immediately there's a Medusa. But this girl with the sword almost is giving me like the feeling of justice. She's naked, so she's also truth, right? She's that there's an old like French what's it called? Not Renaissance painting of truth, where it's like a woman where all these people are like trying to clothe her, and she's like baring her breasts, and she has a sword, and she's like, no, this is truth. And it's giving me those vibes. And also the same thing with the Medusa being on top. Like, that's like, I've learned, like, it's like a power symbol. Like, Medusa was wrongfully cursed. Her entire experience was unjust, and then she was murdered for being a monster because all of these men turned to stone in her presence. But she kept herself in a fucking cave. She wasn't asking people to come look at her. People just couldn't handle her power. And so there was like this sense of injustice throughout all of that was happening. And it's kind of like this renaissance of that, right? Like, she's receiving her justice now. Like, she was unjustly sacrificed, and that created this turning of the tides in order to bring her justice. Yeah, because I don't know what you would call this thing next to her. It's like podium. I don't know what that is. That's the essence that I'm getting out of this card, because I don't even know what that thing is. That's being... Okay, so it's wrongfully, not accused, but wrongfully set up. Cursed unjustly, and now receiving justice, receiving this truth. The same thing is like a woman burying her breasts, carrying a sword, being like, this is the truth. And people being like, we don't want the truth. We don't want to see that. We don't want to know that. It's making us feel some type of way. And it's like, it's not my problem if you guys get rock hard just by looking at me. Right? Like, this is what reality is. This is the reality of things. And I shouldn't have to be hiding in a hole somewhere just to protect everybody else from reality. So what is this giving me from this? This is the Three of Cups, the Lord of Abundance, but it's in reverse. So the emotions of that, in the upright, it would be the sense that like camaraderie, union, family, tradition, a coming together of cycles, a completion that way, like this sense of like community. There's an outpouring into the emotion. But that's not what's happening. Like I said, like in this card, you have like people rushing to cover her up because she's not innocent. Where it's like, because she's naked, like that's that's the truth, and that's what she's trying to say. Like, this isn't wrong, this is the truth. And people don't want to embrace that. You know, there's a sense that, like, there's, you know, what people are trying to embrace is a rejection of that, even. But the truth is standing firm, pouring out back into the community, saying, no, this is what's real. This is what's true. And it's kind of reversing this curse. That's how Medusa's getting her justice, is that it's reversing this curse. It's, you're not a monster for being different. You're not a monster for being proud of who you are. If people can't handle it, that's their own problem. And so it's kind of giving their problems directly back to them in that way, so that they have to receive of it. And this moves directly into the Three of Pentacles, which I've been looking at this whole time but didn't actually like read. The Three of Pentacles. These multiple wheels. The Lord of Material Work. And the way that, like, the divine is holding this structure that the wheels are on. I don't even know what you would call it, but it's like this, I mean, it's vines and shit, but it's like that these wheels are on, is in between its fingers. And it's kind of like, it just gives me this feeling of like nautical. I got that feeling with this card too, like, but I didn't know how to explain it. But it's just like how you would hold like an anchor, how you would hold, there's certain things that you hold that way. I wish I had something, there's a hook, like a certain type of hook that like you hold that way in between these fingers, so that you can also grip it with your thumb, and that's like how you have the capacity to be able to move it at will. And these are roses that have not quite budded yet. And so it comes across like it's just all these thorns. There's all these different thorns. But these wheels are like turning. These wheels are turning, and they're turning in the direction of justice and of intentionalism, really. It's the Three of Pentacles, so it's like there's like this material world that's being cultivated out of this outpouring of justice. We're not there yet. We're not quite there yet. And so what it appears to be right now is covered in brambles. It's like this, like it's just covered in thorns, and it's got this essence of not being fully able to be accessed yet, but it is able to be controlled because of the way that it's being held. And that's leading into the Queen of Pentacles. Wow. The Queen of the Thrones of Earth. You can't really see that card at all. Okay, so the Three of Pentacles, and it's moving into this Queen of Pentacles. It's moving into this innate balance. And it's funny because at the top we have another ram, and then there's two rams on a what is this thing? It almost looks like the Ark of the Covenant is what it's giving me the vibe of. So there's a ram at the top that, instead of flames this time and instead of clouds, and instead of water, it has this outpouring of like fig leaves. The ram's head is at the top, and then like on this Ark of the Covenant, there's two ram's heads whose horns are connected into one another right here. One is light and one is darkness. But they have human faces. And then there's a wheel directly underneath that. And this is all what's in balance. Underneath that and in front of that, it's almost like that's being revealed. It's almost like that's part of a dream. It's almost like it's like part of a metaphor, this Ark of the Covenant. Like, I don't think it's supposed to be taken as the real thing. It's less tangible than that, but it's the destiny that's been spoken of. And in front of that is essentially another ram's head, but it kind of almost looks, it's more like an antelope this time here. I wish that you could see it, but like here's the antelope's horns, and in between its horns is this sphere, this levitating sphere, and it's giving me such The Labyrinth with David Bowie vibes. And the antelope's head is, it's just the antelope's head, and it's like where the ram up here, yes, it's just its head, but it doesn't seem like necessarily a disembodied head. It is, but it seems like it's just like, that's just what you're being shown, where this is literally disembodied, and it's like its neck is flowing in the same way that the fig leaves are. What is the term for that? Fleur de lis? Like, it has that shape of a fleur de lis, like it has that shape to it. Which also this woman has. So now we have this woman warrior right here. This is a female warrior. And she has a hammer with a shovel at its base. And her hammer has like an electricity coming out of it that's square, just like the hammer is, but it's like showing that it has this dimensional power. The same way that this orb, this sphere, this levitating sphere in the antelope's horns, also has, but those ones are circular, but those are coming out of it. And so there's these two alternating powers. There's so much spirals. There's so many spirals in this. Like, there's spirals everywhere, all over. She also, like, her gown comes down into a fleur de lis itself, but it also spirals up into a tight coil. There's all these tight coils on everything. And her helmet has this spiral on it, but it also, like, almost looks like a skull as well. But then it, like, it's very interesting. Okay, so the energy that I'm getting off of this is royalty. This graceful power, this it's so lush and abundant. It's so there's a lot of power here, but it's like very much like a soft power. There's like this masculinity and femininity that's being balanced. There's these different karmic cycles that are being instituted and balanced, being moved out. There's like infinity symbols here. So out of the ground is coming this magnetism, this electricity, this magnetism, this force, this energetic force. And it's the combination of those forces. There's two, they're not oppositional by any means. It's not like you have one and then you have the other and that they're very different. They are different, but almost more in like their frequency. But essentially they're working together to bring about this new covenant, this period of abundance, this luxury. They themselves are like ancient and mystical and not fully well understood or known or like explained. But they're moving into, they're like creating this balance and understanding of a tangible reality. I'm feeling sick to my stomach right now. And I don't know why. They're just bringing in this balance, this card is wild. The Queen of the Thrones of Earth. A new Earth. Bringing in a new Earth. A whole new Earth. That's like been prophesied, already been spoken on. It's not just a new earth, it's a new way of being for people. Like, it's like the beast within us, like this ram, like I said, like it depicts, like the ram is like representative of like our carnal selves and our hedonistic nature, right, within Pan. And it's like that, but it's like like opening up to that. And instead of it having like any sort of innate negativity attached to it, it's like this new concept of that. And being able to embrace it very much like, this isn't the truth, this is who or this isn't a bad thing, this is the truth, this is who I am. This isn't something to be afraid of. This isn't something to hide. This is something to embrace. The light with the darkness. How does this relate to the rest of everything? I guess, well, because that's essentially what was being blocked, right? Was one's confidence in self, one's assurance of self, one's passions, to not be able to claim one's abundance, to be left out in the cold. And this is like a cultivation of things where like everything serves a grander purpose and has like its own space in the universe. Like, and it's like throughout all time and space, all things are serving this singular concept, but it doesn't appear that way initially. You know, it seems very much like chaos, but this chaos is being broken away in order to bring about the light. Bring about the light, like I said, like we have the ram head here, and in the Three of Pentacles, there's this sun with this sun disc with the wings, which is like this sense of like, of justice and of not integrity, but like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Kind of like assurance, you know, and then because this card's in the reverse, you also have the ram's head here, and then you have the sun, you know. You have the sun at the top, and then you also have Medusa at the top here. So, like, it's like this justice being brought to the injustice that's been done. And, like, this setup was only for a time, but it's being brought to truth. The wheels are turning. The same people that were celebrating this woman's downfall are now receiving directly back what they put out. These karmic cycles are turning. And so again, like, the person who was impoverished, like, will end up being on top. This person, like, all these things that were taken are coming into balance. And in a greater way. Like, it's kind of like the story of Lot, where, like, everything, story of Job, where, like, everything that was taken from him was returned tenfold. Which, like, I used to always feel some type of way, because I was like, how are you going to kill somebody's family and then give them a new family and be like, but it's better than your last family? Like, that's fucked up. But after having lost everything that I've lost in my life, and then processing it and being able to move through it, you know, I still carry those things with me, but, like, to be able to, like, grow past that to the point where, like, I can embrace life again after all that loss, like, I get it. Like, I can see how things could be even better than you thought that they could be, and how, like, even after having lost all of those things, like, there can still be this sense of redemption. It's the same thing where it's like, you know, like, Medusa was, like, not a real being, but, like, if, you know, that story is thousands of years old, and it's like, how could we have justice right now for something that's been going on for so long, when, like, she was killed and decapitated for nothing, for being a monster, when she had been cursed to be that in the first place? How is that justice, when, like, time and space, that's, you know, they don't really mean anything. That's just how we define them, and that's for our own personal experience. But, like, these wheels are turning to show that, like, we may not even, I mean, no, in the story of Job, he sees it in his lifetime. And so I know that I'm going to see it, that I am seeing it already, and that I'll continue to see it in my lifetime. In this lifetime specifically, I know that I was led to this specific life. Like, I exist in every lifetime right now, because they all exist right now, but this is the one that I'm conscious of. This is the one that I'm engaged with, and that's for a reason. So I know that it's all coming to, it's all culminating into this reality, all of this justice. But, like, you know, that's what it is. Like, all of chaos is being broken down into this one. You know, everything that we've perceived in the past, all of these lifetimes that it took to get here and everything like that, like, that's all just, it's illusionary. It's not even real. It's just a way that we were able to get here so that we could understand where we're at, and we could understand what's been done, and we can move forward into these things. And so this card had come out, and I decided not to take it, and I put it over here. And so then this is the last card that we have, which is the Hanged Man in reverse. And the Hanged Man in reverse is actually standing in the upright. But the way that he's standing is on one leg and in total enlightenment. And the reason for that is because he had bound himself in order to see things clearly. And now that he sees things clearly, he can stand on his own. But, like, we're still in that transitionary period, you know, and he has enlightenment. Whether he's in the upright or the reverse, it don't matter. He has enlightenment. But it's like being able to come back and stand on one's own foot, or eventually being able to stand on one's own 2 feet. But it's almost like all of this that we've been through, like, we put ourselves through. We are God. We're all collectively a singular God, and the consciousness of God all in all these separate aspects. And we put ourselves through all of these different realities and all of these different lives in order to come to a point of understanding ourselves so that we could see things clearly and so that we could balance all of these things and so that we could, there was an illusion, but an illusion is something, like it's real, like, it's an illusion, but like that is something. So like, it's not that any of this hasn't been real. It's not to invalidate those things, but it's to also not give power to those things, right? Like, there really was all of these different lies that were on fire that were keeping us captive. But it was embracing that concept and then being able to move through it that allowed us to come to the point of, being in our Queen of Pentacles energy. Which is being able to receive this abundance, being able to receive this prophecy, being able to receive like this inheritance that has been promised for such a long time, and stepping into that and all of these things coming into balance and being able to use these things, that may have seemed oppositional at one point, and to be able to recognize them now is not only not oppositional, but working in divine union in order to bring us our justice and our truth. The very things that we used to be ashamed of, the very things that everyone else used to be ashamed of when they saw in us, are the things that are giving us our power. Those things are the truth, and that's what we're embracing. All right, my reads just keep getting longer and longer. I'm not even apologizing, but I hope that this was beneficial, that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.